Alright, Kyle Souza, thetalkinggeek.com. Check it out after you watch this video. This video is about A New Hope and that movie, Star Wars Episode 4, in light of the canon, the new official storyline that includes episodes 1 through 6. We'll be seeing episodes 7 through 9, several anthology films. We've got the Clone Wars and Rebels TV shows, and then all the other official media, books and comics primarily, and some games in there. So there will be spoilers in this. I will be referencing stuff from more than just A New Hope, but talking about events, people, actions in A New Hope as relates to everything else. And basically what I want to do is kind of tie things together before people see The Force Awakens, stuff that we do know, ideas that I have, things like that. Alright, we of course start with the, so if you don't want to see spoilers, don't watch this. But if you don't mind, go ahead and watch this. And if you haven't already seen Star Wars, came out in 1977, you should get on that. You probably know a few things about it already, even if you didn't see the movies. Anyways, first thing in the movie we see is the opening crawl. Big get with all the Star Wars movies. Right off the bat, we get the opening crawls. In there, as mentioned, a battle, the Rebels win, they steal some plans. We're going to be seeing those events in the upcoming Rouge Squadron anthology film, so that's pretty cool. The droids C-3PO and R2. R2 gets a message from Princess Leia. Her ship gets taken over. Important note about her ship there, the Tantive 4, is that the Stormtroopers do a very good job of taking out the security force. The rebel troopers or guards there are very quickly dispatched by the Stormtroopers. Vader makes an appearance after the hallway has been cleared or filled with dead bodies, as it were. Everyone that we see in a position to defend the ship and the princess is killed, and it's not some overflowing just 10 stormtroopers to 1 rebel situation. No, we're seeing that they are an effective military force. It's something important to keep in mind. I'll touch back on that in a second. So the droids go down, they get captured by Jawas, they get sold. Luke Skywalker we're introduced to here. He is living with his aunt and uncle. He's been told some different stories about his father that are not true, and they buy these 2 droids after one droid, Red, a different astromech unit, has a blown motivator. So there's 2 stories and legends as to how this happened. This is part of the reason for the canon storyline to have one official story, and I don't have the answer on what the official story is, but the 2 legend stories are one, that either R2 tampered with him and that made him blow his motivator. We get that from the PBS radio special, which is a fun listen to, even though a lot of it is not true. And Mark Hamill did voiceover in it, but Carrie Fisher didn't, so gotta let a little bit of that go. But anyways, so either R2 is on a mission, won't let anything stop him, hurts another droid to accomplish it, or what I learned from the Star Wars CCG game, being that Red blew his own motivator so as not to separate R2-D2 and C-3PO. C-3PO hadn't been built coincidentally by Anakin Skywalker on Tatooine when he was a child. Alright, so here we are getting into the prequels, how this all ties together. So why would you hide the son that you didn't want someone to know about? Oh yeah, spoiler alert, Vader is Anakin Skywalker, Luke's father. Okay. Why would you hide this guy's son on his home planet and leave his name as Skywalker? Couple reasons. 1, he stayed with family. 2, Anakin hated Tatooine. He makes that quite clear. He doesn't want to go back there. Obi-Wan stayed to keep an eye on him and protect him. And then also, at least in the expanding universe, Skywalker's not necessarily an uncommon name, but more importantly, how are people going to know his name? I don't know everybody with the last name Souza. I could put up a Google alert, but that's going to give me a lot of waste. And if he doesn't put anything out there, he has not applied to the Academy yet, which we do see that Luke wants to join the Imperial Academy, but he hasn't applied, he hasn't entered any official records that we know of. Obi-Wan has just handed him off to these couple of farmers. And I know, there's a lot of stuff that can happen in a rural Outer Rim planet or rural Outer Rim system that does not get documented. Alright, now we see that Aunt Beru, through this whole thing, she keeps her mouth shut, twinkle in her eye, smile on her face, right? She knows stuff, gives us a lot of hints at stuff that gets revealed throughout this film and the next two films, and back in Episode 3. One important thing to note is R2 says he belongs to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we know that R2's in the prequels and knew Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that raises a couple questions. First question is, why does Obi-Wan Kenobi not remember him? Well, he doesn't say that he doesn't remember him. He says, I don't remember owning any droids. And Obi-Wan at no point owns R2. R2 is property of Naboo, and then government property there. Later he's used by Anakin for the Jedi, but used by Anakin, and not necessarily owned by the Jedi Council, or not necessarily owned at all by Obi-Wan Kenobi. So again, Obi-Wan with twinkle in his eye and smirk on his face there, keeping things secret. Now, I do want to address the fact that we had only the potential of one Star Wars film, that we weren't guaranteed anything more than the Star Wars, when it was released. And so the idea of Episode 4, New Hope, came along later when the sequel got to be made, and which sequel was going to be made, Splinter of the Mind's Eye or Empire Strikes Back? Empire Strikes Back got the bigger budget, it got made, then we got Return of the Jedi, and then we got the whole prequels. So some vision was still expounding there, but if you do take it with a grain of salt, you can say, hey, this guy who also was a bit deceptive about who Luke's father was and other things could very well play those word games of, I never owned any droids, versus, oh yeah, no, I don't remember R2-D2 at all. Who are you? Oh, R2-D2, nice to meet you. So we do get that. Interesting thing that Uncle Owen says about Obi-Wan is, he says, I don't think he exists anymore. He died around the same time as your father. How could you be unsure if someone exists, but know that they died? This plays a little bit into also how Obi-Wan thinks, or how these people are thinking about Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi is a very different person, so to speak, than Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan has not changed Kenobi at all, even though he's being hunted by the Empire, by Inquisitors, like we see in Rebels. He doesn't change from Kenobi either, but he goes by Ben Kenobi. And we see that Obi-Wan thinks of Ben a bit as a different person. Oh, I haven't heard the name Obi-Wan in a while. Oh, he's me. A little bit of a, talking in a different tense there. And we do see later how he thinks of Vader and Anakin as two different people. Alright. Luke is 19 at this time. That makes Vader 42, or Anakin 42, just to give an idea there. A lot of time has passed. Vader also, forgot to mention this, Anakin didn't know that his children were born. He was told by Palpatine that he killed his wife, that he killed Padme, and there's no reason for him to go looking for his son, or any child, if he thinks that his wife died. Why would he go looking for that? Especially in the last planet he ever wants to be on. So there's that. Like I mentioned before, Luke does want to join the Academy. He does say later, he's not a fan of the Empire, but he can't do anything about it right now. Luke wants off Tatooine. He's willing to join the Imperial Academy. They are the government. The Galactic Empire has replaced the Republic. That is the government for the Star Wars galaxy at this time. So it's not necessarily that they're evil, they're bad, but not everybody sees them as being pure evil. Again, Anakin built C-3PO. Now, Vader never sees C-3PO during this film. A lot of people are like, oh, how did Vader not recognize C-3PO? When did he see him? He didn't. You know, they were on the same ship, different things, but he didn't see him. So there's that to note also. And we'll talk more about him building C-3PO when I do one about episode 1. By the way, I'm going to go in the order of 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, and then 6. Alright? Stormtroopers being accurate. We see that again when they attack the Jawas. Obi-Wan believes it is the Stormtroopers. He calls them very accurate. They are obviously an effective military force. One of the running gags everybody likes to point out is, oh, you know, terrible aim. Stormtroopers have terrible aim. They, you know, the only thing they can hit is the side of a tree on Endor type thing. That's not necessarily the case. Of course, the big point being that, hey, if they just killed all the heroes, we wouldn't have a movie. There's also something to be said for them shooting at force-sensitive people. And I include all 3 of the main characters in that, Han, Luke, and Leia, and Obi-Wan, if we want to go 4 there, being that they edited the cantina scene where Greedo shoots first, and dodges it, shoots Greedo. There's a couple things in that scene. It, I guess, makes Han less of a scoundrel because he didn't, you know, just shoot the guy. But then also, how'd he dodge that? Real quick, maybe he's force sensitive too, not necessarily at the same level as Luke, but maybe he has that in him. Again, we don't know that yet as far as canon fact goes, but it's something worth noting. Alright, let's see, we talked about Obi-Wan addressing Ben and Obi-Wan like 2 different people, and Vader and Anakin like 2 different people. One of the other big issues that people like to point out is that Luke likes Leia. We find out later that Luke is Leia's sibling. And so something to note, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but he obviously does like her, has some repertoire with Han about it near the end of the film, and they do, or just prior to the Battle of Yavin, I guess, and then there are a couple pecks on the cheek and whatnot from Leia to Luke. So just something to note and keep in mind for one of the next videos. Alright, we also see this big Battle of Yavin, right? So the Death Star is destroyed. This really plays into The Force Awakens here. What happens at the end of Episode 6? The second Death Star is destroyed. They've won. The Emperor has died, and Vader has died. So the Emperor and his top enforcer have died, along with the second Death Star. And that is a bigger achievement than just destroying the first Death Star. But what we see here is the destruction of a massive super weapon. The rebels didn't just win the war with that one fell swoop, just like in Episode 6. They don't win the war right at that moment. There's a lot going on. And so all that gets addressed during the 30-year gap in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. So we're looking forward to seeing that hole getting completely filled by the different books and comics. But for right now, let's focus on the fact that what we see is only a part of the rebellion also. You know, we're not seeing the entire rebellion. They're more than just this one fleet, this one group. We see that a lot from Rebels, that there's more than one group, more than one pocket of rebellion. Don't want to say resistance to confuse with The Force Awakens here, but the Rebels, while organized, are not, you know, the most organized group. It's kind of like America's Revolution. It wasn't just one American army against the British. No, there were a lot of different militias, and there was one larger group, especially getting near the end of that revolution, but there was always some spread on there, and we see the rebellion being the same way. They do have a large fleet, well, as far as they had about 30 ships that attacked the Death Star. So not that big, but they did have a core group with leaders like General Jan Dodonna and other rebel leaders who could analyze data. They had incom techs at their disposal a bit. They had all these X-wings and Y-wings. They were able to mount an assault of some sort. Princess Leia's there, but there is a very disparate group out there. They are scattered, and again, while that battle, a major battle, is won, the war's not over. And so that gets replicated in Episode 6. Not just is there a second Death Star, but a second victory and a second the war's not won. Now, I didn't cover everything in the movie here because not everything is going to have incredible tie-ins, or the ones that do that I glossed over I will come back to with other films. This little 15 to 20 minute video cannot capture everything that is Star Wars A New Hope and any of the Star Wars movies or shows. Go watch them. That'll get you the most out of it, but hopefully this gives you just a little bit something to think about, a little bit more information or some background. We do one thing I forgot to mention. It seems like Luke and Obi-Wan don't really get introduced to each other. Luke's on the ground after the Tusken Raiders attack, and then he sees it and he's like, "Oh, Ben Kenobi, is that you?" And Ben's like, "Oh, you had a fall, Luke." Like, okay, how'd they know each other? Well, they obviously met beforehand. So that's my thought on that. Alright, so I hope that we learn more about that in comics and books and whatnot. Alright, well, check out thetalkinggeek.com, and thank you very much.